Yesterday evening, I got a phone call from the local badger who invited me over to his den in the evening to enjoy a delicious chickpea curry. I said, all right, I'll take you up on the offer, and it was indeed delicious. But then I woke up this morning wanting to capture a beautiful sunrise, but unfortunately it's cloudy. I said, damn, I really wanted to capture that sunrise, but then Mr. Badger came over, tugged my trouser leg and said, George, remember, come rain, come shine, come cloud, come sun, what a blessing it is to be alive today. And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. Again, in a beautiful place I like to call the great outdoors. You might know it, you might have heard of it, and I certainly recommend it. It's a lovely place where you can just be yourself and no one is going to judge you for it. Not the badgers, not the foxes, not the slugs, snails, birds or bees. You can just come out here and be yourself. What a blessing, what an honor, what a privilege. Negative self-talk. What is self-talk? Well, it's the internal dialogue that we have with ourselves day in and day out. Maybe it's negative, maybe it's neutral, maybe it's positive, maybe it's a combination of all three, depending on what's going on in your surroundings. However, are you one of those people, a little bit like I used to be, where you beat yourself up all the time over silly things? Something happens to you that you couldn't control, but for some reason it's still your fault. You beat yourself up for every single thing you do. You spill your tea, you fall over, you make a mistake at work, you're struggling to follow seemingly simple instructions, you didn't go for your daily walk, your daily jog, or daily gym workout, and for some reason it's always your fault. This little voice in your head saying it's all your fault, you're lazy, you're useless, you're worthless, you're ugly, you're stupid, no one wants to be around you for this very reason. Sound familiar? Firstly, everyone experiences this, okay? If you beat yourself up for things often, if you talk negatively to yourself often, if you have a bad image of yourself, that's very normal. That's extremely normal. Everybody does it. Everybody thinks that they're the problem. Everyone thinks they could do better. Everyone thinks they deserve poor treatment from others when they don't have a positive reflection or a positive view of their self. Completely and utterly normal, but it is not healthy. It is not good for you. It is not good for your brain. It is not good for your mind. It is not good for your emotional health and your emotional state of well-being. The more you talk to yourself in a negative light, the more you encourage this negative self-talk, the higher your rates of anxiety, depression, and stress. All these things are going to elevate. This has been proven in research referred to as the Beck's cognitive theory. It is a theory that when you speak to yourself in a negative way over and over, constantly referring to yourself as the problem, as the reason why your day isn't going to plan. What happens is you get into this never-ending cycle of being the enemy in your world, and you become your own worst enemy. And this is going to only create a life full of misery, full of disappointment, full of anxiety, and fear-provoking days. Now, I don't know if you're aware of something called neuroplasticity, but this is a very interesting reaction that takes place right between our two ears inside of our head in something called the brain. I have one, you have one, the badger who invited me over for dinner last night has one, and they all work in a similar way. Imagine your brain a little bit like a maze, okay? And you've got these various thoughts that pop up. Well, if you continually go through one direction in the maze, you're going to learn that path very well. The moment you take a new path, it's going to feel foreign and you won't want to go there, right? You're only going to want to go the way that you're used to. You're only going to want to go the way that feels safe. Well, with regard to neuroplasticity, when you have negative thoughts, your brain is going to associate that with normality. Your brain is going to associate that with feeling safe and understood, right? That's why we have habits. Oh, I have a habit of doing this. I have a habit of doing that. Well, that's your brain recognizing it's normal and safe. You know, if someone comes up to you and says, hey, do you want to go to Thailand next week? I've booked us 2 tickets. You freak out. You go crazy, right? Rather than get excited and go, hey, free holiday. You freak out because it's not a normal way of being. It's not your normal routine. Well, going back to the maze analogy inside of your head, when you have these negative thoughts about yourself, over time it's going to feel normal the more that you do it, because it's a recognized path in the brain. Whereas neuroplasticity can be changed when you make the conscious effort to steer the ship in a different direction with regards to your thoughts, to speak more positively about yourself, to speak to yourself in a kinder way, to think of yourself as the child that you are inside. Speak to yourself like a child. It's okay. You made a mistake. You're not perfect because no one is, and perfection doesn't even exist. So why are you trying to chase something that doesn't even exist? Everything's going to be all right in the end. If it's not okay now, then it's not the end. Speak to yourself in a kinder way. Speak to yourself like you would speak to your best friend. Speak to yourself like how you would speak to your partner if they made an honest, genuine mistake. You wouldn't say that they're useless. You wouldn't say they're ridiculous. You wouldn't say they're an idiot. You would say you made an honest mistake, and you've probably learnt from that mistake. Or it's a very common mistake that all of us make. It might not even be a mistake. It might have just been a hiccup. It might have just been something that you didn't realize you were doing, right? So with regard to neuroplasticity, you can change the way that your brain processes thoughts, the more positive those thoughts are. So you're stuck in this maze, you're stuck in the negative route. Changing the route to a positive one or a different one in the maze, so going this way instead of that way, at first it's going to feel really scary. At first it's going to feel really odd. At first it's going to seem like the wrong thing to be doing. And having a mental battle inside of your head is very stressful, way more stressful than a physical battle using your body. It can feel very isolating because you're alone. You can't say to anybody, look, am I doing this the right way? Because no one can see what's going on inside of your head. But instead of saying, oh, I'm an absolute idiot for doing that, change it to say, I didn't mean to do that, and it's a shame that it happened. But what can I do about it? That's a more positive way to see it. Instead of saying, I'm useless at this, you need to say, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting better each time. The more you can do this, the more you unlock new pathways in your brain. That's what neuroplasticity is. It's training your brain to unlock new neural pathways to see the world and see yourself in a more positive way, in a more honest way, because positivity isn't this wishy-washy, happy-go-lucky, up with the fairies, everything's fine, the house is on fire, but it's all right because I'm just grateful that there's a fire in the first place. Imagine if we didn't have fire, no one would be warm, and then suddenly you're dead. Nobody wants that. Positivity is being more logical about your situation. The reason you're so negative is because it is ingrained within you for survival. I love it out here with the badger. He's one of my best friends. We have chickpea curries together. But if I was to stand here and say, I don't want to go anywhere else, this is absolutely fine, it's got everything I need, well, that would be silly. Because firstly, the badger can't cook me chickpea curries every single night. Okay, I've got to go out and forage. I've got to go out and find shelter. I've got to go out and do this. I don't know what the weather's doing, right? You're negative for survival reasons. If you find a cave out in nature and you're in your survival state, you can't be positive first. You've got to be negative first. You can't say, oh yeah, this is fantastic, let's stay here. You've got to be negative and say, okay, can we actually use this cave? Are there any wolves? Are there any bears? Are there any crazy things going on? What's that over there? Oh, it's just the badger, that's fine. But what's the weather doing? Is it hot in here? Is it cold in here? Is it close to firewood? Is it close to food and water and all the other things that we need? Let's be negative, let's be critical. because it keeps you alive. And so when you're talking negatively about yourself, it's because you are programmed to be more negative than positive. However, when you get the basics in life, food, water, shelter, it is then your duty to rid yourself of that unconscious negative survival mind, because you are surviving. You have food, you have water, you have shelter, and now is your time to enjoy the gift that we call life and realize that it is a blessing to be alive today. It is an absolute blessing to be alive today, because you have your basics covered. And now you need to speak to yourself in a more positive light. When you speak to yourself in a more positive light, it has been proven to reduce anxiety. It has been proven to reduce depression. This was way back in the 1960s with the Beck's cognitive theory. It is used today in something called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Depression comes down, anxiety comes down, stress comes down. So instead of saying, I'm not capable, say, I am capable, and I'm trying, and I'm getting better every day. When a negative thought arises, I need you to challenge it for me. After you watch this video, do this with every single negative thought you have about yourself. It can be something as simple as looking in the mirror and saying, I look horrendous today. Or it could be you're trying to do something at your place of work and you're struggling to understand its process. And then you think, I'm useless, I'm terrible, I'm not intelligent enough for this. What I want you to do when this happens is I want you to challenge that negative thought by saying a few things. Firstly, I want you to say, is this true? Imagine it like a court of law. Be honest. Don't say, yes, it is true. Is it actually true? Is it the legitimate, honest truth? Or are you being a bit hard on yourself? Chances are it's not true. The other thing I want you to ask is this helpful? Is what I'm thinking about right now, is it helpful? Is it helping me to be happier? Is it helping me to love myself more? Is it helpful? I guarantee it's not. Would you speak to a child that way? Would you speak to your parent that way? Would you speak to a sibling that way? I know a lot of you out there don't like your siblings, but come on. Would you speak to your sibling that way? We all grow up, we all become adults eventually, but we all have an inner child, all of us. If we see something that we like, a dance, someone singing, someone showing you a magic trick, you turn into a child again for that brief moment, because we all have an inner child. Some people break down in tears over something they saw or heard in their childhood because that inner child is still in there, and you are beating that inner child with every negative thought that you have about yourself. So many of the thoughts that you have about yourself are not true. So many of the thoughts, the negative thoughts that you have about yourself are not true. They are not helpful. So why are you doing it? Because you're trapped in that maze. Your brain's neurons are firing in a specific pattern, on a specific route. Change the route. Get out of the maze. You don't need to keep going in that same route. You don't need to keep following the same path. Your brain is such a complex and incredible thing, and you can change it. You can think positively about life. You can view yourself in a positive way. I do it. I never beat myself up. Hardly ever. And if I do, it's over something really genuine. Like, yeah, self-reflection. I was quite horrible to that person. I did snap at that person. I am really stressed out about this or about that. It's a real legitimate problem, a real legitimate thing that I need to sort out, but I don't beat myself up about it. Yes, I was a bit nasty to that person, but hey, I am not perfect. I'm going to apologize to them. I'm going to better myself. I have learned from this. I won't do it again. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have learned from it. And he wouldn't have learned that actually, I'm not this perfect guy. I'm not this kind, honest, authentic person. I have faults, just like you, just like him, just like the badger. I'm joking. Badgers don't have any faults. Come on, they make amazing chickpea curries. Everyone has faults, everyone. No one's perfect, but don't beat yourself up about it. When children make mistakes, we don't beat them up for it. We teach them to learn from their mistakes. And you need to do the same thing with yourself. You need to remind yourself that this journey we call life doesn't come with a rule book, a manual, an instruction guide. We got to figure these things out ourselves. There's a reason why the older generation are the wisest, because they have lived through this journey we call life and they have learnt the most lessons. You're still learning and you'll never stop learning. So when you learn something new, when you humble yourself, when someone calls you out for this or for that, don't beat yourself up. Accept the lesson with humility and know that you are improving. You are becoming kinder, warmer, more loving, more understanding, more approachable. But this negative outlook that you have on life and yourself isn't helping anyone, let alone you and your inner child. So start challenging those negative thoughts. Start challenging them. Pull them out. Say, is this true? And is this helpful? If the answer is no, then you need to remove that negative thought and replace it with something more positive. And as I said before, positivity is not this wishy-washy, I'm amazing, I'm the best. Positivity is, hey, I messed up, and that's fine. Positive affirmations can activate the brain's reward system, okay? So what this does is it improves your mood and it reinforces self-worth. This has been proven by a neuroscientist who goes by the name Dr. Andrew Huberman. Very interesting work. I recommend you to look into it. Your self-worth improves. Your self-confidence improves. Everything about you improves. You become happier. You start to glow. Your eyes tell a different story. And you start treating yourself like the person you truly are, as opposed to the person that you've created yourself to be in this negative light, in this negative maze. Don't be afraid to take a new route. Don't be afraid to take a new path. How many times in life has a new path proven itself to be the right thing to do? Stuck in your old habits, stuck in your old ways, until you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then you make a change and you realize this was the best thing for me to do. Should have done this years ago. Just like accepting the dinner party that I had last night, right? Remember that you're not going to change the way that you see yourself and view yourself overnight. It's not going to happen. And I want to remind you again that it will be stressful when you first start. Because for me, for example, it would be like the opposite. It would be like training myself to think critically and negatively about myself every single time I wake up, every single time I do something. Because that's not what I do. I do the opposite. I think of myself in a positive way. I think about how I can always improve and be nicer and be kinder, but I don't beat myself up. I look after myself. I treat myself with respect and dignity. So for me, it would be like trying to do the opposite. I find it so hard to say, George, you're worthless. George, you're useless. George, you're so incapable. George, you're not doing anything. Who do you think you are? George, you're just the worst person. George, you're so incapable. Why are you even trying? But if I kept doing this, eventually, my neuroplasticity would amend itself to this new neuro pathway of negativity. Whereas what I need you to do is the opposite of what I was just talking about with the example of myself. I need you to start thinking more positively. I want you to take that new path. I want you to think more positively about life. And as I say, being positive is not ignoring logical facts. Like, I don't know, maybe you're super unhealthy and you look in the mirror and you go, do you know what? I've let myself go. Well, hey, that's positive. You've recognized a flaw. You've recognized something that needs amending. I've let myself go. All right, I need to prioritize my health so I can live a long, happy life, be around for my children, be around to look after my parents when they get old, etc., etc. Okay? Just speak more positively to yourself. Treat yourself like a child. Like any habit, the more you practice this, the better you're going to get, the easier it's going to become, and soon it's going to be your subconscious. Soon it's just going to take over. You won't even notice these negative thoughts because they won't be there anymore. They have no reason to be, because your brain has rewired itself to take the positive path, to take the easier route. Because it's an easier route. Your brain prefers the positive route because it reduces your blood pressure. It reduces your anxiety, reduces your stress, reduces your depression. Your brain actually prefers you to think positively, to do positive things. Whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, your body prefers to do the positive than the negative. It prefers to laugh over cry. It's healthier to do so. Still cry though, because it is healthy to let it out, of course. You know what I'm saying? It's healthier to go to the gym than to not go to the gym. It's healthier to go for a walk than to not go for a walk. It's healthier to view this world in a positive way than a negative way. And just like that, you'll find yourself out here in nature, smiling, breathing deep, smelling the flowers, and partying it up with the local badgers, smiling with your new mindset. I hope this video helped. I hope you learned something. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Please like the video as well. If you did indeed learn something today, it really helps the channel out. It helps me out. Leave a comment down below if you're struggling with this issue, or maybe you've overcome the negativity in your life. I don't think anyone ever overcomes it completely, but you can certainly work on it. Let me know if you've done anything yourself to get over this, to help yourself, to view the world in a more positive light. And I'll see you in the next one. God bless.